So finally, I have the GameSir Tarantula Pro, also known as the Nine-Tails Fox in China. So I've been waiting for this for a while now, ever since I heard GameSir were going to be doing a TMR sticked controller. I have had the only other TMR stick controller on the market for a while now, so this is the PB Tails Crush Defender. Only 999 were made of these. It doesn't have any additional bells and whistles like paddles or lockouts for the triggers or anything like that, but what it does have is awesome performance for the sticks, and that's why I really like this, and the way it feels in general. So a very good controller. This is my go-to controller up until now. I also have, which I've also got a video review up of, I'll put a link to both of them in the description below, but the Nixie P1 Master, or the Master P1, this does have mechanical D-pad, and it has mechanical Kale switches for the trigger lockouts. This does use Hall Effect sticks, so with that comes the usual Hall Effect quirks. So sometimes latency can be an issue with Hall Effects, but I found these to be very good. So the EasySMX X05 is my favourite cheap games controller using the Hall Effect sticks, and these sticks are on par with that. So let's go over to the Tarantula Pro. As you can see there, the USB-C port is recessed quite deeply. So the annoying thing about that is, just grab a USB cable. This is one that came with the Nixie P1. It doesn't actually fit in because the shroud for the jack is too wide, and you'll find 98% of cables that you have lying around, Type-C cables, will not fit inside GameSir controllers now, because for some reason GameSir recessed them in so deeply. I've only got one cable which actually fits. So if I grab this cable here, this came with my gaming keyboard, and this fits in, so I can use this. Tarantula Pro does come with its own cable, but it's rubbish. It feels cheap. It's not braided or anything like that. It's not even lightweight. So I am using this if I want to use wired mode, or if I want to charge it as well. So I just use this cable. So just keep that in mind. You might need to buy another cable unless you get the version with the stand. So this is the Tarantula Pro that I ordered from GameSir Direct. With the stand, it's a bit more expensive, but you just place it on and that's it. And the dongle, the 2.4 gig dongle, attaches to the stand, and you just use it like that, which is very nice. All of the RGBs can be customized. I'll go over the software in a minute as well, but I just want to go over what you get on the controller itself. So in photos online and videos, I don't think they do the controller justice, because in person it is much nicer. I like the forged carbon effect that you get on this fascia here. It looks nice as the light plays with it, which is kind of cool. I also like the big oversized D-pad. So compared to other controllers, you can see is slightly wider, slightly taller, but it's just as flush, so it doesn't stick out as much. By comparison, the PB Tails D-pad does stick out a bit more, so you do feel it under the thumb more, and sometimes, depending on the game, it can make doing special moves, for example Hadouken in Street Fighter, you sometimes can miss a diagonal, so you don't always register. So it's just the odd 1%, 2%. It can be annoying. So that's something I've learned over time as I've had this controller and used it more often for beat 'em ups and stuff like that. Initially I didn't find much of an issue with it, but as with most things, the more you use it, the more you discover about it. So it's just one thing to note. Not the best D-pad. It's usable, but it could be better. The D-pad on the Nixie P1, very good. It's mechanical, and all of the buttons are easily usable for special moves. So I've had no issues with that at all. So really good. Again, £38. And likewise, because this is slightly oversized, there's also a sort of like a pseudo central rocker, and all of the diagonals, all of the moves are really easy. So uppercut, Hadouken, and so on. So I really like that. That's nice. All of the accessory buttons are micro switch as well. And the trigger lockout is a Kale mouse clicky switch, mechanical again. And you probably noticed the lockout switch on the triggers for the P1. There's a bit more travel compared to the GameSir. So check out that travel. But on the Tarantula Pro, there's not much travel, so instant activation of the micro switch, which is kind of cool. So I turn off the lock. We get nice damping at the bottom as it bottoms out, and the spring tension is not too stiff. It's just light. It's just enough, just right enough to be nice. You can also lock out the paddles at the bottom as well. So if I just do that, when you press it, when it's locked out, there is a little bit of give, so it's not completely stiff, whereas it is on the Nixie P1. So locking these paddles out, you can't press these in and it won't flex at all. So that's nice to see. Kind of wish at this price GameSir did the same with this one as well, but it's a small issue, like a nitpick really, rather than anything else. The main nitpick, not nitpick, but the main issue I have is this USB port. So you kind of have to get it with the base station just to make life easier, unless you have a cable or you buy a cable which is better than the stock cable, lighter, more pliable and so on, which is what you want for a gamepad when you're using it in wide mode. The thing that I do like about this is the ABXY buttons. I like that it's kind of like a lens and it gives you that kind of magnified effect, which is really nice. And what you can do is if you hold the M button on the back and hold A, switches to Nintendo layout, and it's not just a visual thing. So the mapping, the internal mapping itself has changed now. So B is B here, A is A here, X, Y respectively. So when you're playing on Switch or via emulation or playing a Nintendo game, or you're just playing a game which follows the Nintendo layout, the 4 LEDs along here indicate your mode you're in. So 4 lit up indicators means X input. So if I load up the GameSir app, some reviews I watched said they couldn't get the app to load or connect to the controller when using wireless mode. So I'm wireless now and it's working fine. I think they may have been on an earlier firmware which didn't work. So I did have to update the dongle firmware when I got the controller, which then enables 1000 Hz over 2.4 gig wireless. And then I used the GameSir app to update the controller firmware. And I did that with USB. So that was fine. And then once I did both firmware updates, I was then able to connect to the GameSir app via wireless. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a firmware issue. So always make sure you're up to date. So the app itself can be navigated with the controller, which is nice to see. So all of the functions and everything works via the controller. Along the top here, we have 4 buttons. First one is firmware update. Second one is reset defaults. Third one is button test. So you can check all of the buttons work. The lights, you can customize the speed, the color of ABXY in Switch mode, the color of ABXY in Nintendo mode. And you can see that as I toggle, it changes. And you can change the brightness of them, the color of them. So what I chose to do was set all of the ABXY RGB LEDs to 2%. So it's nice because if you turn them off, then you can't see them. So if I turn off A, for example, to 0%, you can't see what that is. So 2% is not bright enough to be a battery drain issue, but just bright enough to see even in the dark or in bright conditions as well. So that's kind of nice. I don't really bother with the LED up here, the bar one. I just got it on for the video, so I'll just turn that off. But you can set it to a static color, pulsations. Whenever you press something, it activates. So that's kind of cool. Some people might like that. I'm not bothered. So I just turn that off. It does have a sleep mode as well, so when you rest it down for a bit, it will go into sleep mode. When you pick it up, it will wake back up again, which is cool. The button mappings. So let's go across all of these here. You've got your button mapping screen. You've got your sticks. You've got your motion control. Now the motion control, 6-axis gyro, you can customize that to activate with a button press, and you can mimic mouse movement. You can set it to activate with the sticks or do what the sticks would do. So you can do camera movement and so on. So there's a lot of scope of customization that you can do with this. I've not played too much around with it because I don't really play many games that require or use motion aiming or anything like that. Triggers, you can customize those with the dead zones and everything as well. And the triggers are very sensitive as well, which is nice to see. If I go back to the sticks, you can enable and disable the circularity. So by default, it ships with filtered circles. So that's the 0.0%. So you can turn on the raw input, which gives you the full area of the square sensor because of these sticks. And I've set the dead zones to 3% for both sticks because that I found even just touching it slightly results in in-game movement as well. And I've done the same with the triggers. So they're at 0% because you don't need it to be any higher than that. If I go back to the buttons, so every single button on the controller can be remapped and to do anything. So for example, I've got this top button here to be the numpad plus button, which is my Read the Tuner statistics server. So I use that to activate that. You can do any other keyboard input, mouse input, controller default input buttons, so whatever the buttons are, you can just remap them. Or you can set up custom macros as well. So I haven't delved too far into these, but you've got dedicated buttons to do different things. So for example, if you go back to here, advanced and keyboard, so you've got your media control buttons here as well, so you can mute. So this could be mute, for example, which is kind of handy to have. You don't have to go to the mouse and reach over and everything like that. So that's cool. You've got your lighting and vibrations. The vibrations are cool because this controller has HD rumble. So if I just turn off the lock on the triggers to test this, and I've got them maximized. They're not maximized by default, but you do have 4 levels of vibration. 0 being off, and then an additional 4. So, test the left stick, right, and it is adaptive as well. So, small amount of vibration, more. So that's cool to see. And this, the HD rumble feels more or less exactly the same as what the Nintendo Pro controller feels like. So that's cool to see again. Another premium edition. These 2 buttons I haven't customized to be anything yet. And by default, start, select start, and the middle button is screenshot in Windows. So what that does is it uses a snipping tool to take a screenshot, and it saves it to your default Windows screenshots folder in pictures. So that's cool. You can customize it to do anything else as well, even keyboard shortcuts and other functions, whatever you want to do. So that's really nice to see. The way the controller feels, the plastic quality and everything is very nice. I think they've chosen this material deliberately because with long use, I've not had any issues with moisture or sweating or anything like that. It just feels comfortable through and through. The bottom is textured, there's no rubber. The top part is, it's like a satiny matte texture, and then you've got a little window where you can see the gears moving when you change the ABXY. The stick caps can be removed and then replaced with different ones if you want to. It looks like they are just standard GameSir style stick caps anyway. So I'm going to fire up a few games and we can end it there. So just like on all other controllers, pressing the home button does load up Steam, and pressing it again by default, it loads up big picture mode. And what I'm going to do is we'll play Streets of Kamurocho. So it's like a clone of Streets of Rage 2, which I kind of like. So you can obviously use the analog stick, but I'm going to use the D-pad. The other thing is the ABXY buttons, when you hold and press it in, there's no flex, so it is bottoming out to a solid surface. There's no sort of additional play in the button when you press it in, so that's nicely engineered. Sure. And what I'm going to do now is load up God of War. So yeah, you can see instantly there the response of the stick, just moving a tiny amount. It does react. Yeah, so very responsive. So using joystick tester from John Punch on Reddit, what we can see over 2.4 gig wireless, 941 hertz with 7.8% circle error rate and 0.0005 step resolution. And we'll do the same with the right stick. 941 megahertz, same circle error and same step resolution, 0.0005. So very good again. And if I fire up Gamepad LA, we'll do 1, and let's do the right stick. So what have we got? We've got 857 megahertz with a 1000 hertz max, 85% stability, 1 millisecond minimum latency, average latency is 1.17, maximum is 2.52. So it aligns with PBTEL's TMR sticks. They're both K-Silver, so I kind of expected that. So just keep that in mind. You're getting wide performance now through wireless with TMR sticks, mechanical D-pad, short throw, mechanical lockout of the triggers, paddles that can be locked out, full keyboard remapping of all the buttons, however you want, ABXY which remaps to Nintendo layout at the press of a button. And yeah, it's just, for the price, you are getting a lot for your money, and it feels like a PlayStation 4 DualShock. So the quality is good, the build, construction, everything is solid. I'll know more in about a month or two's time after I've used it more to see if that holds up, but so far I'm very impressed for the price. The only thing I wish it had revised, or GameSir revised, was the recessed USB port. And a lot of people have complained about this, about their other controllers, so quite why they refuse to change that, I don't know. But you can find another cable which fits in there, which is better quality than the stock cable anyway, or at least give us a stock cable which is better quality so we can use that. So that's the only negative really. So one thing I forgot to mention was that the joystick caps themselves are transparent. So if I turn my torch on, it's just easier to see that way. You can see it's slightly transparent or translucent, which is it's quite cool. In normal light, you don't actually notice it. So if I turn the light off, and now it's not so obvious. So I didn't even know that until I was looking at it under bright light. And it is metal stick caps as well. So that's really good for anti-friction and wear reduction on the sticks themselves. Review, that's the Tarantula Pro. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.